Hey everyone, welcome to the final recap from my Vegas tournament. For this one I am covering two games. I'm covering both games from the final day, rounds 8 and 9. That's because round number 8 was one of the most disastrous games I've ever played, and we're going to go over it pretty quickly because there's not much to look at. And then round number 9 actually was kind of an interesting game. So in round 8 I'm paired with Akshat Chandra. Now I've played him once before, actually, in the last classical tournament I ever played. He didn't retire me, but I did lose to him in that tournament. I just was a bit psyched out this game because I figured he would begin with knight f3. I think he's good friends with Theodoru, who I played a couple rounds earlier, and I kind of thought like maybe he would induce me to play g6. That was my logic, and that's what happened. And when he played d4, like, I had a feeling he was going to go for an e4 game. He was not going to let me play my g6 stuff against a d4 position. And for whatever reason, at this point at the board, I convinced myself not to play d6 and just play like a normal modern, in fact, one that's even slightly less dangerous for me because he played knight f3. You know, like if you want to get aggressive here with white, you need to play f4 or you need to play bishop e3, f3 because this is already committed on move 1. I could have played d6 and we could have had a game, but I went big brain. I was like, I'm going to go here and I'm going to go d5. Like, I'm going to play this Malakhov, named after Vladimir Malakhov, and I mean, Vladimir's in his name, so it's obviously a good opening. And then he went here, and for whatever reason, after all of this, like I said, I don't really know what possessed me this game to play the way I played, but I decided to do this and play a hippo. And, like, the hippo is not the world's stupidest opening. And by the way, if you're confused what the hippo looks like, it's kind of like regardless of what white does, you set up like this. You set up these pawns on the third rank. Oftentimes, you will even delay committing a castle because your opponent can set up. My logic was this. The hippo takes a slow time to get developed and going, and I'm going to play a pawn break, and we're going to have a very confrontational game. At least that's what I told myself. But then he went here, and I was like, what do I do? I don't even know how to play this opening. I'm sitting there like, why did I do this? This is just so stupid. I knew one idea in the hippo was to bring your queen over here, and I did part of it, and then I was just like, am I really going to put my queen on a7? Like, with a straight face? Like, I've seen this played before, and then, you know, black will bring the rook, and then actually the queen will sometimes come back, sometimes right for the center. You'll notice my opponent is just taking as much space as possible, because in the hippo, what black wants is for the opponent to, like, lunge forward, and for black to close the position, and now black has something to play for. Black can, like, completely shift gears and focus on, you know, f5 or something. But he just didn't do that. He just played h4, and I was like, okay, I can sit around for 3 hours and die, or I can die now, and I played e5. And then he just finished his development. I went here. He clarified the position in the center, and it's funny. Like, he played b4, I went here. I'm like, you know what? I get it. He's going to try to push his pawns and take as much space as he can. I'm actually going to castle into this, which might be a surprise for him, and then I'm going to try to play f5 when my bishop opens. That was my plan. That was like, well, I got nothing else. So he goes here, and I'm like, well, you know, this is a nice move. This is a pawn undermine. If I take, I activate his knight, and it hits my bishop. If this, then this, and this is positionally lost for black. That's what I thought was going to happen. Like, I figured if I played g5, he would just put his knight on f5 at some point, and that would be the end of the game. Maybe not right away. Like, he can probably wait. I mean, I would not be surprised if he can just play like queen b3 or a rook d1, but at some point he will do that, and I'm going to die. Also, I can't play f5 anymore. I just have terrible light squared weaknesses. So I decided to do this. He did this. I did this. All part of my plan. I'm like, he's not going to see this coming. This is the most clever move in the world. I'm so smart. I can just fork him. Fork him. I'm so clever. I'm fighting back. But we're going to lock this up. And you'll notice that he's just exploding the position over here because his position is just so good. Again, if I were to like even take an extra pawn for 1 second, he would just go here, lining up a discovered attack that would win my queen. So I played f5. I'm like, I'm so brilliant. You know, he started thinking. He thought for like 10 minutes, and I started gaining confidence. It's like, maybe he didn't, he's going to take my pawn, because if I fork him, he's going to take again, and he's going to danger level me, right? He's too strong of a player to be watching danger level content on YouTube, but, I figured this was too much, but I was going to go here, and if he takes with the bishop, I take, f4 is coming, but this is where he proved that he's just the better player. He also could have proved it before the game. He took, and I just completely miscalculated that he can go here. I just, like, from far away, I'm like, well, bishop c5 makes no sense because we trade, and I push, which is what I want. And it just hit me that he can go here. Just the calm move. And my position is not coordinated well enough. He's going to take on c5. He's going to hit my queen. He'll probably win my other pawn. He's just going to be 2 pawns up. And I was like, well, my all hope is lost now. So I went here. He did this. And I was like, it's not so bad. He's going to go knight f1. I'm going to go knight c6. I'm going to take his b pawn. And then he took the wind out of my sails again. And he played this. I mean, just 2 very patient rook moves. And I'm dead. The threat is bishop to c4 check. And it's not that simple to even move out of the way. If I move my king out of the way, he just still takes and my queen is under attack. If I move my queen out of the way, which I did, if I go here, he still takes because my king is not out of the way. And if I go here, which does get my queen out of the way, and, from the pin, it doesn't matter because he just goes back and I have nothing. I now have a hanging e-pawn because I blocked my bishop from defending it. And he went here, and he finished it off in style. I, played a couple moves, not out of disrespect, but just because, maybe he hangs his queen or something. You always play on, like, 1 or 2 moves, just in case, just in case he, I don't know, IRL mouse slips or something. I don't know. I resigned. Yeah, I don't really have much else to say about this game. What I will say is, it's kind of a throwaway game. I psyched myself out before the round. I couldn't figure out what to play. I was like, do I play the modern? Do I play the Queen's Gambit? Do I play into his ready? Do I play, well, he would play Queen's Gambit. I would play like Queen's Gambit accepted and the indecision went all the way up to the board and I just decided to go with something. And famous last words. I mean, not much else to say. I will say this. It's very important. If you watch these games live, if you don't, this is going to surprise you. The live chat of some of these tournaments, or actually just my tournament, this is the first tournament I'm playing, the live chat is pretty supportive, but there are some lunatics in it. Some are just like hateful trolls, which is understandable. But my friends were showing me and laughing at this one guy who's actually an international master. Like, he had the title there, and anonymous. And he was saying some of the most outlandish stuff I've ever seen in my life. He was saying, I chose the hippo against Akshat because contrary to my on-stream mild-mannered personality, I'm actually really egotistical and cocky, and I'm arrogant. And that's why I chose the hippo. Like, I'm just a public service announcement, folks. If I ever play a really bad game, I just played a really bad game. It's not, we don't need to do heart surgery on a paper cut. Like, it happens. My brain didn't wake up for this game. I don't know. I'm never going to play the hippo again. Let's put it that way. And at least not against the GM. So anytime you see these like high rated folks trying to like spout some nonsense, like just disregard them, like focus on, your own improvement. A lot of high rated players, they find themselves to be the highest rated person in like the lobby. So they got to, say some wild stuff. Yeah, it has nothing to do with that. I just chose a really bad opening, which takes me to the second game of the day. And I actually have to copy paste this in because of the way that my overlay looks. So I'm going to paste this in. I'm going to change the names. I was paired against Ming Lu. And Ming Lu is a talented kid. He's like a 14-year-old kid. Ming Lu, he's rated like 2149, I believe is his exact rating. We actually played at a Blitz tournament here 2 years ago because there was no National Open last year. So I needed revenge. He beat me. So I knew he played the semi-Slav. So if I played c4, he would play c6. If I played d4, he would play d5 and c4, c6. And, you know, I kind of had this thought before the game. I don't want to get into a theoretical battle. I actually think that this guy might have, like, the Chessable Sam Shanklin semi-Slav course, which is what a lot of these, like, young, talented kids do. They, like, get the Chessable courses, which are, you know, 50 hours of video, and then they train them. I'm like, I don't want a theoretical battle. So I played e4, which is now a Caro-Kann pseudo-Panov. He actually plays the French, which kind of surprised me. Like, why do you play the French, but also, okay, but, you know. So I figured, okay, I'm going to maybe surprise him with this. And here the main line is, and black doesn't take back because this is just a bad Scandinavian. Here the main line is bishop b5 check. And black's best move is this, because if this, then this, and you hang on to the pawn. But I decided, let's just play an isolated pawn position. So let's just play an isolated pawn position. He's going to have a lot less familiarity with how to deal with isolated pawn positions. That was my logic. And my logic was correct. So isolated pawn positions are ones where obviously you just have a pawn and it doesn't have a neighbor. And I played bishop b5, pinning his knight to his king. Now he doesn't have such an easy way of developing this bishop because I'm kind of constantly threatening to just go and apply even more pressure. He actually has to play this move because now he can put his bishop on d7. You guys see that now this is not possible because I would take his knight. And in many of these structures, like, which is natural moves, I played d4. I was kind of improvising. I had no idea what I was doing. And then my suspicions about him being unfamiliar with the position were proven true because here the most natural move for black is obviously bishop, just finish your development, rook c8, do something with the knights. He spent like 35 minutes in this position. It's move 10. And listen, I'm not one to talk about time management. I am definitely not strong enough to be this guy's coach. Probably 2 years down the line, he will be beating me. But you don't have to spend 35 minutes in this position. I mean, it's either bishop d7 or a6, and maybe taking my knight. But I was very happy. I was like, okay, take your time. I'm like walking around doing my thing. He played a6, and I have the option to take, which is like the entire point of putting the bishop on b5, because now you have this d versus c. So I have an isolated pawn, but so does he. And I can maybe like move my bishop at some point and play rook c1 and knight e5 and target that isolated pawn. But I decided no, bishop d3. I actually felt like he expected bishop c6, and he spent so much of his 35 minutes analyzing those positions, and I just back up, and now he's going to be even more rattled. I tried to play the psychology game a little bit more this round. Like, he did not spend 35 minutes analyzing a6, bishop d3, probably analyzed a few other things. So I played bishop d3, and I made my intentions very clear. I'd like to attack you. And in isolated pawn positions, the person with the IQP, especially when the other side is passive, like right now my opponent has kind of passive pieces, I can create an attack on the king side because my pawn is a shield. My pawn is a shield, and at the same time there's open lines and all this stuff. So here he thought again for a while. He decided to take and go here, and I knew this was bad. I was like, okay, he destroyed the blockade of the isolated pawn. He transformed my structure. Now I don't even have an isolated pawn. It's very strong now. And I'm going to go and attack this. I thought for a little bit. Now, it's kind of hard to create an attack because you can't go knight g5. And if you wait too long, he's going to go bishop b7, bishop f6 to apply pressure to your center. He might even rotate the knight back around. His bishop will come alive. Also, he's got b4. Like, let's not forget, we have a weakness. So I need to be quick. And here I played kind of a poking and prodding move. I played this. And the point here is that I hit the pawn on h7. And I want him to move it. Like, I was like, okay, so here's what is going to happen. He's going to move his pawn because I'm hitting it. Then I'm going to go queen e2, queen e4. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to threaten this, and I'm going to threaten this. I'm so smart. Look at me, I'm so smart. And then he played g6, and like I knew this was possible. I just thought it was just not a good move. It just shocked me that he did it. But it actually was pretty resilient because he completely weakens his dark squares. So now this is a hook, and that is why you play moves like this. You force a pawn forward. Now that's a hook. So what do? Of course, I play h4. And I played h4 because if he takes it, and it is free, his bishop is just wandered off. And so now I would play this with tempo. He would go here, and then I would maybe take, and now he completely lost a dark squared defender. So my bishop just hangs out on h6. Maybe I kick the queen out. I try to bring my rook. Maybe I try to checkmate him. I was like, I'm going to be happy. He looked very dejected here, which was actually good because there's still kind of a lot of fight in this position. It is not over, but he really felt the momentum changing. So he went here, which definitely is a good move, and I missed his whole idea. I was like, what is he doing? So his idea was to free up the square for the knight, actually rotate the knight to help. That's a very nice idea. I thought it didn't make sense at first because I'm like, his bishop has no guard. Like, okay, he went back, but now I can come forward. So, I don't know. Didn't look great. Didn't look great for him. But here I couldn't find a way through. I calculated everything. I mean, I calculated HG. I'm like, is it too early to do this? I calculated bishop h6, and then he would go back. And I'm like, wait a minute, how am I not just mating him? I queen d2, h6. He's fast enough. I mean, bishop b7 is coming. Knight f5 is coming. Queen f6. Like, all of a sudden, I'm losing pieces in this attack. And I spent so much time trying to find the right way, and I didn't. Because that's always what happens. I played knight e5. My logic was I'm going to take it. I'm going to play knight g4. That was my point. And of course, he cannot take me. So he played bishop b7, nothing illogical. I just moved my knight to the center. I was, again, always monitoring whether bishop h6 was possible. Here, I really wanted to play rook e3 to try to play rook h3. The problem is that now he plays knight f5, which, again, this whole idea I completely overlooked, so credit to him. But then, after bishop b7, I played hg and something like knight g4 to target the bishop. But it's funny. I always analyze the game before I make my recaps. And I had this sneaking suspicion that even all the way back here, the best way to play this attack on the king side was to actually play it on the queen side. I actually had a feeling that while he was rotating his pieces, this is a really instructive move. And I really wanted to play this move, but I couldn't bring myself, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I was like, am I really going to have to, I didn't like that he could sack the pawn and kind of really soften up my center. Oh, and it's funny, now that I'm putting this into the Stockfish, it's starting to say, yeah. See, now Stockfish is saying that we go to an endgame and I'm up a pawn. So I pause my attack and I win. That's interesting. So I didn't want that. I was like, I'm either going to win or lose. I don't want to play a really long endgame. I'm tired. We also have a 9 p.m. dinner reservation. This is always what happens in the last round of tournaments, by the way. You just don't care. If it's round 3, you're like, gotta win this endgame, boy. But if it's like the 9th round, you go for mate. And my opponent definitely felt that way. So I played knight g4. He went back to g7. Knight f5 even now. I thought I was a genius. I thought I was like, knight f5 doesn't make any sense because if he plays knight to f5, then I attack his rook. He goes here. And then I have this, and some attack on his king. At the same time, I was like, it obviously doesn't work because I just go here. And then this, and I'm mating him. I completely missed computer's defense, which is f4, rook h3, bishop g5. What are you gonna do? See, I just was like, I have too many threats. I mean, because something to h7, taking on f4, bishop g5 covers both. Yeah, computer kind of kills my hopes and dreams. I thought it was a very smart attacking player. He went here, I gave him a check. And then I played this idea. This is a very nice idea. If he takes king h6, have you ever seen a double checkmate? That would have been cool. He didn't do that, though. He played bishop takes, this, and now again a move that neither of us saw. He doesn't guard his bishop with anything, actually. The best move, he goes here, which is, that is so ridiculous. And then he hides behind his... He plays this, and that loses, because after this, I just go queen d2, and he cannot prevent this. g5, I take his king, and so I gave him a check, and this is important because he has g5 and losing a pawn. This is one option, but he also didn't feel like playing a pawn down endgame. He felt that 9th round feeling, and here I have a nice knockout punch. You could pause here and try to find it. I will give you 5 seconds to pause the video. Sometimes you guys complain. You're like, you didn't pause. Okay, well, now I'm giving you time. You don't repeat moves. We are not super GMs. You play here, here, and crisscross applesauce. Sometimes you cash in. By the way, there is no rook f3. Sometimes you cash in on the attack by just winning material. But this is not just winning a pawn. This wins everything because the king's circulation is cut off. He went out with a bang. He played here, threatening checkmate. I almost blundered it. Rook f3 check. He sacks the queen. And it's like, if rook h8, rook h1 is possible, I'm going to lose. The problem is it's not possible at all. I give a check. If he takes my bishop, I have this. And he resigns, because even if king g7, I just move my bishop. So that concluded round number 9, and I defeated legendary Grandmaster to be Ming Lu, got revenge for my Blitz loss 2 years ago, and finished my tournament with 5.5 points out of 9. So my only 3 losses came to 3 GMs. 2 of those losses, no. One of those losses was actually a normal game of chess, if you can even call it that. I did mess up in the opening against Lekapian. The other 2, I have work to do, and one of them I should be punched in the face for, and that's the Akshat game. But overall, I don't know how I feel. I feel fine. I'm kind of happy the tournament is over. I don't have an overwhelming sense of joy from playing these games. I would like to be better at Classical, and I would like to be more competitive. I did feel quite good after the Chris Yu win. But I don't know, 6 out of 10, probably, if I had to say. Actually, I posted a picture on Twitter of my eyes after my 7th round game last night, and you should go look if you don't follow me on Twitter. That is what these tournaments do to me. My eyes were bloodshot beyond belief, very tired, and yeah, we'll see if I do this again, but I guess until next time, and thank you all for the amazing support throughout these recaps. They have blown away viewer records, like, 400,000 views in 24 hours, numbers that I never do, so thank you all. Do me a favor and drop a comment with whatever, reply to somebody, say something nice about or mean, it's totally fine, and don't pay attention to what anonymous international masters tell you in chess live chat. Till next time, goodbye, get out of here.